Saturday Stories. This is the Society of Illustrators monthly program where we feature an illustrator and sometimes an author illustrator. And we get to spend a fun hour with our illustrator. And today I have great pleasure in telling you a little bit about Mike Lowery, who is prolific at drawing every single day. Let me tell you, he fills his sketchbooks, he doodles and doodles. And when he was a kid, he used to get into trouble for doodling, but now he gets paid to do it. So he's going to share a bit about his love of drawing, and he does definitely do a lot of workshops and things. So do check out his website and his Instagram. Tim behind the scenes will be putting that into our chat. And more about Mike, he's in Atlanta, joining us from Atlanta. So do let us know where you're joining from. And if you're a fan, shout out to Mike. I will let him know all the details of what you're saying in the chat. If you have questions or want to let us know where you're from, who you are, I will tell him during the workshop portion of this morning's program. We usually start off with Mike telling us more about himself, but I want to let you know that he is a New York Times bestselling author, illustrator. He's done many kids' books, and one of them was the Gingerbread Man Loose in the School. You might have heard of that one. And there's also a prequel to this one called Santa Shark. But today we are featuring this fabulous book called Pizza Shark, starring Edgar, who's a goofy shark, and his best friend Lotta. I'm not going to tell you any more, but it's full of funny puns, and we'll be having that read to us by Mike himself. Really looking forward to that. This is a great book. It's just been launched this year, fairly recently, so you can find this in your bookstores, and I always recommend that you support your small bookstores in your towns, or you can also get it from the libraries. Without further ado, I'm going to actually hand over to Mike to tell us a lot more about himself, but do have all your drawing materials ready for the latter part of the program. And as I said, let us know where you're from and any questions that you have for Mike. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Mike.
Oh, folks, listen, thank you so much for having me. I assume that I should pause for a minute because I assume everybody's clapping in their homes right now. I can't, I can't hear it. Let me see if I can get somebody here to clap for me. Okay, yeah, good. I get the people here in the background here to clap. Folks, hey, listen, it's great to be here. I love it. I'm in Atlanta right now. Today, I have the pleasure of, I'm going to be presenting later at this festival, and I was able to share somebody's office, one of the professors here at the Oxford College in Emory College in Oxford. Let me use their office. That's why I have such a nice display today. So let's do it. I'm going to jump in, and here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk today about writing and drawing. We're going to do some drawing together. I'm going to read my new book. But Claire, before I do any of that stuff, we have to talk about something very important. We have to talk about me. Yes,
we do have to talk about you. And Mike's not alone, actually. He has kids and a wife who's also an illustrator.
Yep.
And you have one of your kids in there, right, with you?
Well, she's being sneaky, so I can't say yes or no, but yes.
So, yeah, it's all about you, Mike. And honestly, you're one of our favorite comic illustrators.
Oh, I like to hear that. Name some people that you would rank me higher than, but make sure they're known names that I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to jump over to a presentation. Does that sound good? Is now a good time to start jumping into that?
Fantastic. Yes, we'd love to see you share your screen.
Let's do it. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to hit play. So you should see this right now, correct?
Yes, looks great.
Excellent. Hey, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk for just a little bit about myself, and I'm going to talk about what led up to the book that we're going to be reading together in just a second. But all of this stuff comes from, if I get any chance to talk at all about drawing or making books or any of those stuff, I always use the chance to talk about keeping a sketchbook. And this might sound a little dramatic, but keeping a sketchbook changed my life. And it did. It really did. I'm going to show you how it did. I'm going to do this part quickly because I want to get to the drawing part and get to the reading part. But I want to tell you a couple of things. So first of all, here's a couple of my sketchbooks. I'm going to be talking more about a sketchbook in a minute. This is me. And when I'm talking about a sketchbook, if you're watching this and you're not really, maybe you're not, you don't think of yourself as an artist or an illustrator or something like that, this is also for you. So hang in here. This is me. Just as a quick thing, this is not a photograph. This is actually a drawing of me, but my style is called hyper photorealism. Sometimes people think that my drawings are photos. Okay.
I'm laughing.
And here's a couple of things about me. Number one is I make books. So over the years, I have been incredibly lucky. And I'm not just saying that because it sounds nice for someone who's gotten to do something to sound grateful. But I'm incredibly lucky and I'm incredibly thankful that I've gotten to work on close to 90 books, for mostly for kids, but some for adults as well, but mostly for kids. And so you can see some of these here.
Book series too.
And I'm sorry.
A lot of book series as well.
Yes, some book series. I've gotten to work on a few books for Lisa Thompson out of the UK, and this is a series that I wrote and illustrated, that is called the Doodle Adventure series, and it's a graphic novel where you have to draw part of the story. And Claire, I'm going to tell you a secret, so don't tell everybody else this. I'm just telling you as a secret. What I realized is that I could get kids to do a lot of the work and I would get paid the same amount. So it's like an activity book. And so anyway, let's go back to the presentation now. Here we go. Over the years, I've been able to work on stuff for, this is a series that I worked for Max Greenfield. And then I did this series, which we're actually working on some new covers for this series. They're rebooting this series for Ken Jennings, of Jeopardy fame and of nonfiction books. I've also written and illustrated some comic books for kids like Bug Scouts, which is one of my favorite books that most favorite series that I've ever worked on, Bug Scouts. And so those are some books that I made. Here are some books that I did not make. All right. When I was putting together some of the books that I'd worked on, here are some of the books that I have not worked on. There's another Mike Lowery who writes books about hockey. So I didn't make these books, but I thought it would be nice to show them off. I keep a sketchbook. I keep a sketchbook every single day. And it's a really big part of my process is keeping a sketchbook. And so I'm going to talk to you about keeping sketchbooks now. I carry a sketchbook with me everywhere that I go. This is totally true. I carry my sketchbook. My sketchbook right now is in my bag. It would be awkward if I reached down to pick it up, but I really do have my sketchbook with me, and I carry one with me everywhere I go. Even if I'm in the Amazon rainforest, carry a sketchbook, or on a swing over this, in this tropical location here, keeping a sketchbook. Okay. Even if I'm in a Japanese restaurant or in a helicopter over the Grand Canyon, it's important to me to keep a sketchbook. Even if I'm getting a haircut in the Hong Kong barbershop, I carry a sketchbook with me everywhere that I go. And a sketchbook is a really fun thing. A sketchbook does not need to be something that's boring the way that some people might think of it as, okay? A sketchbook can be something where you draw or collaging or you're making notes. I use mine as my journal. I use it as a diary. I make a lot of notes about my day, and you can try comics in there, a lot of other things like that. So I'm going to show you some pages from my sketchbooks. Sometimes they're silly, like this one, where here's a drawing. I imagined what it would be like if Batman was more like me, and then he didn't really want to fight crime and was just kind of moping. And some days I'm just sitting down and doodling. I might draw something like little monsters or things like that. Some days I collect things from my life. I did a book a few years ago, and it got picked up to be part of this Dolly Parton program. And so I made a note of just randomly getting a letter from Dolly Parton in the mail. Did she personally sign it? It was made to appear anyway. So I'll kind of go through some of these quickly because I want to get to the drawing stuff and give you guys plenty of time for questions and stuff. I keep a sketchbook. I really, really love drawing, and keeping a sketchbook like this has turned into how I then was able to make a career as an illustrator. So I started making work for people that looked like the drawings that I was doing in a sketchbook. So here are some different projects that I've done over the years. where my drawings were used for actual clients, for people who needed illustration work that looked a lot like something out of my sketchbook. And it might be for magazines, it might be for advertising agencies, or like this one, which is one of my favorites. I illustrated a Filipino food truck out of Jacksonville, Florida, a couple of years ago, and I got to do a lot of drawings of food and things like that. So something else I should tell you, this is something that I have learned from keeping a sketchbook, is that not only do I like to draw, but I like to draw weird stuff that is true. I like to draw weird stuff in general. I like it when people laugh at the things that I'm drawing. I like it when there's funny things in it, but I also like to draw stuff that is totally true. And this thing happened a few years ago because I was keeping a sketchbook. When I say a few years ago, this has been probably 15 years ago now, which is difficult for me to say because I didn't realize until saying this that it has been, I keep saying like 8 or 9, but now I'm realizing it's maybe 15 years ago. What happened one morning was I couldn't think of something to draw, but I had read a really bizarre fact. And what I did is that I just decided to draw that weird fact. And I'm going to read to you some of those things now. A chicken nugget sold on eBay for more than $8,000 because it looked like George Washington. I didn't draw this for a project. I just drew it for myself. I thought it was funny. I started thinking about George Washington and what he would think if someone handed him a nugget and said, this kind of looks like you. And I thought that was pretty funny. So what I did was I liked doing it. I got to practice some handwritten type. I got to practice drawing George Washington in my style. And maybe for the first time ever, I drew a chicken nugget. And so I liked the whole process of it. I kept doing it. And I've been doing this for more than 10 years now. So I'm realizing it's not 15 years ago. This was 12 years ago that I drew this one. So I've been doing this for about 12 years, is that I draw these weird things, and it combines together the things that I like to do, which is research, weird stuff, collecting things, information. And I started making a project out of it. Here's some more weird facts. A chicken named Mike once lived for 18 months without a head. All right. Its name was Mike, which is interesting. More time has passed between the Stegosaurus and T-Rex. See, everybody thinks Stegosaurus and T-Rex would have been fighting and things like that. More time, millions of years passed between when Stegosaurus was on this planet and T-Rex. More time was between them than between us and velociraptors. So we live closer in time to velociraptors than T-Rex does to Stegosaurus. In Alabama, it is illegal to wear a fake mustache to make someone laugh in church. Okay, a lot of weird laws. In Queensland, Australia, it is illegal to own a pet rabbit unless you are a magician. This is a true fact. And I'm going to tell you, all of these things are things that when I started doing this, I would hear something weird and I would draw it. And then I started kind of posting them. This was like early Instagram era stuff. Maybe I would post a few of them. And then people would say, well, I don't think that that's true for these reasons or whatever. So now I have to really research all of these. So now I know all of the story behind them, because I want to make sure that when I post them, that I'm posting the truth and that I'm posting something that is solid. There's a word in Japanese which means to acquire books and let them pile up without reading them. And I mean, you don't have to say this in the chat, but if this is something, this is almost exactly what my nightstand looks like. And so maybe this is what other people have this as well. Maybe if you would say, if you've had this, this as well. Okay. Anyway, the national animal of Scotland is the unicorn. Woolly mammoths. Listen, folks, this is insane. Woolly mammoths still existed when the pyramids were built. So we think of woolly mammoths as being extinct a long time ago, but they were still around when the pyramids were built. The ampersand was once the 27th letter of the alphabet. So here's what happened. And then I'm going to get over here into reading my book here in a second. I'm keeping an eye on the time because I want to leave a lot of time to draw. So what happened was that I was keeping a sketchbook just for me, for my brain, and keeping track of the day. I got bored and I started drawing some things that I liked. And then that turned into these weird facts. I was not doing it for a project. I was just doing it for myself. those weird facts turned into a book that I later did, where I started collecting all of these weird facts. I was really lucky because one of the editor for this book had also been a fact checker at a previous job, and so she was very rigid and great at helping to make sure that all of these facts were totally right. And I love that kind of stuff. So we worked really well together. I think I with really great memories. I'm hoping that they feel the same. And but I had someone who made sure that everything was correct, and I made a book of facts. And I didn't want to stop there. I liked drawing all these weird facts so much that what I started doing was I started making a lot of books that were full of weird facts. Here's one that I did called Everything Awesome About Dinosaurs and Other Prehistoric Beasts, where I started collecting all of these weird, interesting things about dinosaurs and other things that used to live on this planet. And then over the years, I have now been doing that for a lot of different types of books. Everything Awesome About Space, Everything Awesome About Sharks, and Everything Awesome About Dinosaurs. And sharks was not something that I knew a lot about. I had to research, I had to read, and I'm not saying, so, I visit a lot of schools, and I always have to tell students and these kids, I'm not saying I like to research because your teachers told me that I have to say that, so that, it's something that I really like. I like to research, and I like to make sure that things are true. One more quick thing about me before I move on to reading my book is that I really like to travel, and I keep a sketchbook with me when I travel. Here's me in front of the pyramids. This is Southeast New Jersey, the pyramids of Southeast New Jersey. No, I'm just kidding. These are the pyramids in Egypt, and this is me as a child looking quite great, by the way, in that outfit, which looks pretty good. And so I keep a sketchbook with me wherever I go. And so I like to draw a lot when I travel. And so this is something that, we're kind of at the end of the summer travel season here, but for you all who are going to get breaks over, the holidays coming up, carry a sketchbook with you. I love it. It's a great way of keeping track of things. And it's not always, I'm not sitting down. It's not some boring thing. I have a lot of fun doing it. And so when we're in a new location, then I try to just draw some things that happen throughout the day. Maybe it's trying a new giant soup dumpling in China, or just walking around in a busy city. Sometimes I just draw me drawing, or a little rock garden, or keeping track. It's a lot of food stuff in mine. Okay. A lot of food stuff, which is, I've realized a lot about myself in looking at past sketchbooks. There's a lot of food stuff. So this is something that I really like to do, is to keep a sketchbook while I'm drawing, when I'm traveling. And it's a great way of keeping track of your day and remembering stuff. But listen, I'm going to show you some more of these things, but here's a good example. A travel sketchbook, or your sketchbook, it doesn't only have to happen when you're out doing some big adventure. It can also just be trying, a new hot dog place. I like to make little jokes about funny things that happen and interesting things. So sometimes it's just drawing a hot dog place, but sometimes it can be, here's us at the Neuschwanstein Castle in southern Germany. And sometimes, listen, listen, are you thinking, did I put this New York page in here because of the current audience, potentially, of some of these Society of Illustrators folks? Did I put it in there for that? I don't know. You'll have to decide on your own. I will say that I did show this slide a couple months ago, and a kid in an elementary school, and one of the kids raised his hand and he said, "Why is the hot dog at the top saying help?" And I don't, I don't know. I didn't know how to answer the question then, and I don't know why I brought it up now. Here we go. Let's keep going. Here's some from Nashville, some different drawings. And I liked collecting stamps when we were in Japan, so I made a lot of different stamps into a journal. So because of that, is that over the years, so what I'm talking about now is how a sketchbook absolutely influenced me moving over into some of these projects. I'm going to end the presentation here because this is where I ended up doing a book a few years ago called One Star Wonders, or not a few years ago, last year, called One Star Wonders, where I collected terrible reviews. Maybe I'll show you two of them. I'll show you two. I think we have time. I can show you two. Whenever we travel, I always look at, these different travel sites, and I love seeing reviews of famous places that are bad. These bad reviews of famous places. If you go to the pyramids or the Taj Mahal or something like that, Leaning Tower of Pisa. And then there's these bad reviews that someone will write, and they're always very silly. So here's one: in the catacombs of Paris, someone wrote, this is a real review. Someone wrote, they didn't let us skip the line, even though my wife was pregnant. Okay, that's good. Okay. Here's one of Tuscany. Let me do this one here. I like this one a lot. Here's a review that someone wrote of Mount Everest, which was, they don't let you drive up. I tried. So I'm going to tell you, I was working on some nonfiction books, that Everything Awesome series, and we did one about some sharks. And my editor, Liza, uh, messaged me and asked if I had something that I would like to use to post on social media about this shark book, maybe with some weird facts and something like that maybe kids would find interesting. I had been researching and reading a lot, and I'd been drawing a lot more accurate looking sharks, and I just wanted to draw something silly. So instead of doing all that, I just did a drawing of a shark in a Christmas sweater, like in an ugly kind of Christmas sweater, and used that as my holiday promotion for a shark book. She liked it. She thought it was funny. I liked it. I thought it was funny. I thought, and so it kind of stayed with me. So I just kept drawing this funny shark. I gave it the name Edgar, named after somebody that I know, and who was not a shark, but who was a human. And started writing these stories about Edgar and Lotta. Now, this is book 3, which is Pizza Shark. Let's jump into it. I want to make sure if we've got some young folks in there that they're not like now starting to, drift away. Here we go. Pizza Shark, a fantastic feast, by me, author and illustrator, avid sketchbook keeper, Mike Lowery. So what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about one of the things that I do. I didn't all of a sudden have an idea. This entire talk, everything we've talked about so far, I talked about keeping a sketchbook, but all of these things, all of my ideas don't just come out of nowhere. Okay, I'm not just walking down the street whistling and then lightning strikes and I have an idea and I say, oh, what if it's a shark and it likes pizza, but it doesn't have pizza stuff and they have to work together. What happens is that I have little pieces that I put together, and that is how an idea is formed. That's how we get ideas. They don't come out of nowhere. So what I want to do with you all is we're going to have an idea together. All right. And let me see it. Let me switch over here. We're going to do some drawing. And I'm going to show you one of the things, and if we have time, I might show you 2 exercises. Let's do that. Let me try and show you 2 exercises. Folks, now is a great time if you have paper and pencil, or markers or color pencil, or if you have an easel set up and you're along some beautiful river and you have an easel set up and all of your paints are ready to go. Now's the time to get that stuff out. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to do 2 drawing exercises sort of quickly. Right now, I'm going to be drawing on, hopefully you can see my screen, correct? You can see that I'm drawing.
Perfect, Mike. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to do 2 quick drawing exercises. And the first thing that we're going to do is starts with, you can do this just with pencil, just have pencil. That's great. We're going to do this quickly. I'm going to show you how to do it. And then you can do this later on your own. You can spend a little bit more time with, but I'm going to do it kind of quickly because I also want to leave some time question and answers because folks, I got stuff to talk about still, you guys have these burning questions, more about, anyway. Okay. Sorry. I'll just draw. So I'm going to draw something quickly, which is I'm going to draw 3 weird blobby shapes. Don't draw just yet. Just look at what I'm drawing and you can draw something like this. I'm going to draw one that kind of looks like this. I'm going to draw one that looks, let me think what I want the other one to look. I'll draw one that looks like this. And then for my last one, I'll draw one that sort of looks like this. Okay. Now on the, Claire, is it zooming in right now?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Right, perfect. I'm just making sure because sometimes with presentations it just stays static, but that's good. It's good to know. Okay, I am using I'm using Procreate. I'm drawing on an iPad right now with Procreate. I love drawing in Procreate. It's an app for your computer. I think a lot of the adults here might know it. Honestly, I think a lot of the kids, if you're listening, you probably maybe know it better than the adults by this point. But it's a drawing program. I really, really like it. And so that's what I'm using. I assume that question will come up later, but this is not something that I always do on an iPad. This is something that I typically do on paper because I like keeping a paper sketchbook. I love it for a lot of reasons. Okay, but I'm going to draw these simple shapes. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just making a game for myself. And I feel like a lot of the ways that I come up with my ideas is just coming up with these games for myself. I'm going to try to turn these shapes into, I'm going to try to turn these shapes into something. So just list some animals.
Okay, is anybody going to write some animals in the chat? I can start. Sausage dog.
There we go. Sausage dog. Okay. So a dog. We could also say dog.
Dog.
Okay.
Dog.
Mm-hmm. Give me anybody else.
Oh, hang on. Let me see. Yep, someone's popped. Hippo. That's a good one. Thank
Oh,
you.
hippo is good. I feel like I have to look
snake.
at it.
Rachel says snake. Oh,
Oh,
and
a
we
snake.
unicorn or a puppy
Puppy
from.
unicorn.
Yep, we got a lot
All
popping in
right.
there. Cobra. Oh, sorry, capybara. Oh, thanks.
Capybara.
That's a good one.
Capybara.
Capybara.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do, you guys just keep listing some animals. And then what I like to do is I like to take these shapes and then just try to turn it into something. So I don't overthink it. I just try to turn it into it. I'm going to try with the first one. Oh man, if I did a hippo right now, can't even think of what their noses look like. I know that they kind of have like a big mouth that sort of looks like this, right? And then they have these big teeth. This seems more like almost like a walrus. This is more like a walrus. And then walruses have this. What are their noses? Do walruses have? Yeah, they have kind of a nose, right? I'm sort of picturing. Um, what is a? Does this look like a hippo? Don't hippos kind of have like a? What was the other one? Capybara. Capybaras are funny because they have like this sort of long, kind of squarish face, and then it's going to look like a dog. So here's what I do. I start drawing. So you pick an animal. I'm going to draw for just a second. And then on one of your shapes, just pick one of them and just pick an animal that you would like to draw. I'm gonna kind of mix mine up a little bit here because I like this a lot. I'm gonna come back to this one. I'll show you why I'm coming back to this one in a second. I'm gonna pick here for this one. Maybe I'll do a bat. And what you want to do is you want to use these shapes to just sort of loosely start creating something. And what happens is, so this is now, it's just a regular bat, and I like it. And if anybody has seen me do any kind of presentation stuff before, I do this all the time. And the reason I do this one all the time is because I genuinely do this constantly. I do this in my sketchbook all the time. But what happens is I started drawing a capybara and then it didn't really look like it. And then I started realizing the shape of mine kind of looked like something else. I'm going to show you here. Mine looked a little like a wolf. And so I'm going to draw a wolf here. I'm going to give it, does that look too spooky if I make its eyes like that? Do wolves have eyes like this, like a cat? I don't know. Listen, I'm not an animal expert, you guys. Did I study wolf anatomy for 18 years? Yes. How much of it have I retained? I mean, not much. Okay, here we go. So I've got, but what I like is that then these little characters start forming. So now I've got a wolf that's sort of wearing this hooded sweat jacket.
Exactly.
And
We also have a raccoon.
What's that? Raccoon was one of the options?
Yeah, raccoon came in.
I feel like I could just turn this into like part raccoon here.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, just these little things start happening. And this is how I get ideas. It seems like I'm sort of just playing right now, which I 100% am just playing. But there's this great thing about it where this is how this is where these ideas start coming from. And maybe a little story will start showing up. Oh, I didn't draw his tail. And so we've got a bat here. And then maybe what'll happen is, to me, I don't know. What do you guys think? What does this already kind of look like something? Is there a shape to this one already that you feel like it kind of looks like something?
Somebody said
Anybody?
that seems possible.
Somebody said snake. I do feel like this could be a snake pretty easy. right? Now snakes do have these eyes.
Yes.
And then maybe this is a cobra. Okay, here's my snake. Sometimes you have to go off from that original shape a little bit, right? So that it kind of fits a little better. Okay, I'm going through this quickly again because I want to do something else here in just a second. Okay, this is an easy little thing, right? You draw a shape and then you just try to turn it into something. I'll give it some little ears like this, and maybe it's got little teeth, or maybe it's got a big hat on, and it has a mustache. And maybe this whole thing is somebody's face, and this is their collared shirt, right? So there's a lot of different things that you can do with this kind of activity. And what it does is, again, ideas don't come out of anywhere, like out of nowhere. What it does is you just have to be kind of playing around and putting pieces together. And this is the way that I come up with my ideas. And so one of the things that I'll do now is I'll take, after I do a drawing like this, you can keep drawing. I'm just going to keep talking because I want to get to the question and answer stuff. What I'll start doing is I'll start coming up with ideas based off of something like this. So I drew the sort of raccoon dog looking thing that had this hooded sweatshirt on, but maybe you like to draw sharks. I'm going to draw a shark. I combined two things together to make that I like to make pizza shark, which are pizzas and sharks, but maybe you really like sharks and space stuff. So something that you can do in your sketchbook. Look, I know that I'm going through this stuff quickly, you guys, but I want to be able to show you some things that you can do in your sketchbook. Maybe you like space stuff, so you draw, big space helmet. But who's the astronaut? Well, it's this shark. Okay, maybe there's an astronaut shark. What else could be an astronaut? I'm like very tempted to look up a picture of a hippo, and so that I could see what a hippo looks like. What were the other ones? I'm not remembering. Oh, somebody said snake. Oh, I feel like a snake in space. Look at this. It's just so perfect for like a joke
A worm.
look. I'm sorry, did you just say a worm at my drawing of a snake?
Yes.
Okay, well, no, I'm just fine. All right, and so here's my snake in space. And while I'm drawing, mashing together two things like space and snakes, it could be skateboarding and turkeys, or it could be a monster that's doing a Rubik's Cube and it has a lot more hands, for the Rubik's Cube, which I don't even know if that would be beneficial to have more hands when doing a Rubik's Cube. So let's do this. Why don't we see if maybe you all have some questions for me? But before we move to questions, I would like to say you have two activities now, or kind of one big thing. The big takeaway is I think it's good to keep a sketchbook, whether you think of yourself as an artist or drawer or not, even for like you adult folks who are maybe just here hanging out with a kid or just watching in general, keeping a journal. It can be so easy to just make a couple notes. It doesn't have to be everything that you do all the time. Just make some notes. And then the two other things are now you have that simple shapes activity, and you also have that activity mash together things that you like and make a drawing out of it.
Yeah. So what are your favorite analog tools for sketchbooking?
Okay, well, I'll show you. I said earlier that it'd be weird if I reached down. The sketchbook, I use as kind of a small sketchbook. This is what my sketchbook looks like. It's it's not super small. I don't recommend this as the main sketchbook because it is kind of small. And sometimes it's nice to draw, practice a little bit bigger. I'm just going to see. But I'll make notes about things. Yeah, sometimes it's travel stuff. We went to a little island here in Georgia, and I kept track of some of the things that we did. But it might be stuff that's not so exciting. We watched a movie about a dog that could play basketball. not a documentary. It was not. Halfway through the movie, I was said, wait, this isn't a documentary. And so I might just make notes of those things, but things that I like. But I keep a sketchbook on paper like this. I use a you get it at office supplies stores, but I use a pen called the Uniball Vision. This is a strange angle right now, isn't it? Like, look at this, like anyway. And I keep a little bag with me where uh, I keep in it my just a little, I keep just a cheap mechanical pencil. I keep an eraser. I keep a couple of other types of small pens, but those are sort of my main things. I like pencil and I like a paper sketchbook.
Right, that's good. And just for some of the kids that maybe I was just about to say, analog just means traditional drawing materials, and obviously Procreate is digital. So those are the two different ways you can draw.
Right.
So how about the beautiful lettering that you do? Did you just ease into sort of creating your own style? I mean, it's so great. Do you have any tips about that? Lettering.
Yeah, so I would say you kind of broke up, but I think I can kind of guess what most of the question was, but yeah, it kind of broke up. So hand lettering to me, one of the reasons that I started drawing those weird facts is because I like hand lettering so much. And then I started practicing my lettering every day. And one of the ways that I like to do it is you just look at old lettering styles, look at some old fonts and then just try to draw it in your own way. And I'll pencil out just some lines where the top of all the letters will go or the bottom of all the letters. But most of the stuff that you've seen in this presentation is just me sort of drawing, but it's me practicing a lot.
And for all of the books, I mean, you've done so many books. Are you drawing them traditionally, or is it a mix? Do you draw them, scan them, and then color them digitally? What's your process usually?
So I tend to initially, most of my, so you've seen a variety of stuff in the presentation, but some of the books early on, or from, I guess, most of the time me making books, a lot of it has been, I'll draw on just cheap copy paper. And then I trace those drawings and then I scan that in and then I'll color it in Photoshop. But now a lot of the stuff that I do my sketches. I'll even do sketches in Procreate, and then do some final art in Procreate also.
I think another question is, there are so many cool characters in the pizza party, coming to Edgar's pizza party. How many different types of fish did you think about? Or was it quite quick? Or does the pun come to mind quickly? Or is it just sketching fish? And how did you do that? That is magic.
Well, thank you for recognizing that it's magic. Here's the way I do it. All of these books, what I do first is if I have kind of a rough idea, I want it to be about pizza, then what I do is I almost always just sit down and just write out any topics that I can think of, either ocean related or related to pizza, related to food, or things like that. And for the puns, I always just kind of figure out whatever the common thread would be between those things, right? So if it's like a buffalo, and then I list every word that I can think of that's buffalo related, like home on the range, or furry, or I guess they have horns or antlers or whatever. And then it might be something like, then I hit a word like bison, and then I think like, oh, okay, well then the joke is a dad saying bye son to the buffalo, or whatever the thing is. So I sketch all that stuff out, and then sometimes the little jokes will kind of come up on their own, right? Like with alliteration, like olives and octopus and Oscar and things like that. So it's always just, I make a lot of lists, and here's the big thing is that you write it down first and then edit it later. Don't try to edit it in your brain, or you'll kind of start thinking everything's no good. Sometimes
Yes.
you just got to get it down on paper.
You have done greetings cards, because these ideas are so hilarious. They work on a greeting card as well. And you have done those, I believe, right? The series?
Yeah. Yes, I've done some greeting cards for Hallmark. I've done some for a Roger Laborde. Okay, so all UK reference, and yeah, I've done some for American Greetings and things like that. And so this is exactly how I do cards for sometimes it's been cards that they've written, which is I like to do that too. That can be fun. But then sometimes a lot of times for a long time they would come to me a couple times a year and say, "What ideas do you have for greeting cards?" And if you can imagine, if somebody just says, "What are your ideas?" You don't have like, I don't know. So I would keep lists of ideas. And so I would think of things that were funny or things that I just liked. And a good example, there was a Father's Day card that I wanted to draw someone being like a dad wearing socks and sandals together, you know? And so then the card would say something like, Happy Father's Day to a dad that's totally cool. And then you would see that the dad is wearing socks and sandals and you would realize that he's not totally cool.
Yeah. Yeah, opposites, right? That's a good, yeah.
Right. So it's just me collecting little things and
Right.
turning them into jokes like that.
So Bill's just asked a good question. I think it's a difficult thing. What's your favorite thing to draw? Well, Mike, you draw so many things. That's
I actually don't think it's that tough a question, only because I think the thing that I've realized over the years, I'm not going to say necessarily, I like drawing all kinds of stuff. I like drawing kind of funny characters is a big thing, but I also really like drawing things. I like making something that I think someone else will enjoy when they see it. And it's typically meant to be a little funny or playful or something. But those are the kinds of things that I like to draw.
yeah, yeah. And you draw everything. So yeah, you're not limited to anything in particular. I know you draw everything. And someone just suggested that if you don't have a nice sketchbook, just fold some copy paper in half and start your own little homemade book. So
yeah, that's right. So I think if you get too nervous because the sketchbook looks too nice or too fancy, then just draw on paper and then staple it together. I occasionally, sometimes I can't think of something to draw in my sketchbook, and I will just draw on post-it notes because it's small, it's cheap, it's easy to just throw away if you don't love it when it's done. But I do it all the time, is that I'll just draw on like a sticky note.
yes, yes. Well, you know what? I totally recommend our audience goes out and checks your books out because you've got so many inspiring books. Just looking at Mike's books and all of the research that he's delved into, all these facts is just fascinating. And I was going to ask you, when you were working with your editor, who was really helpful at really fact checking, did she find some things that you had just made up? Or were you pretty good? Was she sort of finding nearly 100% correct?
Oh, she was significantly more thorough, and I am very thorough with researching these facts, but she was even more thorough, and some of it was really, really. And I think there were points where she would even apologize because she was being so specific. I loved it, and so no, I think that it was a perfect team up.
So, well, thank you so much, Mike. You know, I've been dying to have you come on this show, the Saturday Stories program for the Society of Illustrators. And thank you so much for taking time out this morning to really engage and inspire everybody. I know they got so much out of it.